fiction fan, which I wasn't particularly when I did Space Odyssey, but I subscribed to all the science fiction magazines like Astounding Science Fiction, Galaxy Science Fiction, Fantasy and Science Fiction. There were three major magazines in those days, and I also read anthologies. They'd have the best science fiction short stories of 51, 1952, 1953, etc. I'm showing my age. Anyway, I remember reading this short story called The Sentinel. How many of you have heard of the short story by Arthur C. Clarke, The Sentinel? Oh, well, as you know, that was the germ of the idea, and that short story dealt with the part of the film of the scientists going to the space station and then to the moon and discovering the monolith. That's all it dealt with. And when I was reading the script, I said, something is terribly familiar about this film. And then it hit me. I remembered that many years earlier reading it when I was a kid. I may think of other things to talk about, but is there any questions that kind of you're dying to ask before we continue?
I do.
Okay, and I'll come to you next. Yeah.
In the space station, Pan Am, Hilton.
Yeah.
Is that the first time that they sold? Did he actually sell that for revenue?
You know, that's a good question, and I'm not truly. I don't really know.
Because they do that a lot now, but that's the
Yeah.
first time I ever saw it.
Yeah, they could have.
And what were you eating when
Oh, some artificially colored, with vegetable dye, some gook, some
looked like
mushy
you were
stuff.
really
Yeah.
That's good acting.
That good acting. Right. Yeah.
Is it odd seeing the scene at the end in the white room where you look at yourself rapidly aging from back then, and is that?
Well, I'm doing better than I did in the film. Tell you an interesting thing. Well, I've seen the film enough. Maybe when I first saw it, I was. When you make the film, you get to see it. The makeup took 12 hours to put on. So I got kind of used to seeing myself in the mirror when I was being made up in that. I think it was a remarkable makeup job. And I had an idea in my head that I was going to share with you, and I've forgotten already. I'll come back showing my age. It's like the joke, if you can remember Woodstock, you weren't there. Yes, sir. Yeah.
What direction were you given? What was the director telling you to express and how to act in the latter part, in the latter scene? Or what were you, or were you just on your own?
Yeah, well, it's an interesting experience working with one of the greatest directors of the 20th century, Stanley Kubrick. It was just he and I and the crew, because Gary was killed off by that time. He used to do what they used to do in silent movies, which was, because there's so little dialogue in this film, he would play music to put me in the mood. I remember one of the pieces, there's a very famous American composer, or no, he's British, I think, Vaughan Williams, very well-known composer, composed the Antarctica Suite, and there was one movement of that suite which was very mysterious, and it kind of really gave me a feeling. So he used to play that a lot. I'd share something else. My favorite part of the movie, and maybe this is because I wasn't involved, my favorite part of the movie is the Dawn of Man sequence. And one of my favorite moments is when the penny drops, when the lead ape man suddenly gets the idea. I mean, I get a chill whenever I watch that. It's like that is the moment. I call it the missing link moment. If you believe in Darwin's theory of evolution, something happened that created Homo sapiens from whatever came before, and that symbolically was that moment. And when he's fiddling seemingly aimlessly with a bunch of bones, and now he's touched the monolith. And the monolith has a lot to do with everything that happens in this film. The monolith I think it's a metaphor for change, and certainly the only representative of the aliens. And it was very, very smart of him not to have bug-eyed monsters, but rather only show you the influence of the aliens rather than literally showing you an alien. And that was certainly the main representative of the alien effect on mankind was the monolith. But then there's the ape, and he's fiddling, having touched the monolith in an earlier scene, and suddenly it's almost in mid-motion. You know how a dog, when it gets curious, will do this? You know how a dog does? If you watch this film again, the ape does that. And suddenly, and then his motions become purposeful. My other favorite moment, which I think is a genius concept, when at the end of the sequence, the whole Dawn of Man, he throws the bone in triumph into the air, and it goes in slow motion, and then it morphs into a space vehicle, which is our introduction to the present time. Well, I only discovered this relatively recently, is that that's Kubrick's intention, and so was Arthur C. Clarke in terms of the movie. That wasn't just a space vehicle, any old space vehicle. That is a nuclear weapon in constant orbit around the Earth. So therefore, what he was able to do in an instant, that's just as genius as far as I'm concerned as the missing link moment, is he morphs from man's first weapon into the most recent and horrendous weapon, all in one moment.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's your, and I'm sure a lot of us have read different interpretations of the Star Child and what's your interpretation of the whole last sequence?
Oh, you would have to ask.
Yeah.
Well, the truth of the matter is, Stanley Kubrick was a wonderful man. I'm very privileged to have worked with this man. And he created a wonderful atmosphere. I'm going to try to answer your question. He created a wonderful and safe atmosphere to work in. But he also, to help us, tried to not only just create a safe atmosphere, which is a big secret with working with actors in any film or in the theater, live theater, same thing. Because if you create a safe atmosphere, your artists will take greater risks. Sometimes they may be bad, but only those moments of genius sometimes appear when the actors are relaxed. But he also didn't really want us to kind of figure out too much what the metaphysical meaning of the film was. He wanted us to be subjective as the characters were playing. I mean, the two astronauts don't know what's happening at the end. They have the vaguest idea. I mean, there's no dialogue to express this really, but in fact, these guys are in as much of the dark as you. So in terms of any idea that I might have what the meaning of this film is no more valid because I'm in the film. And this may sound like a cop-out, and maybe it is, but people see religious significance. People, kind of the cyclical Buddhist nature of existence. They see that in the film. I can see the cyclical idea. I mean, things come around again, but slightly in a different. It's just more like a spiral, and I suppose it could suggest that this is the nature of existence throughout the universe. That things evolve and become something else. So from the ape man to modern man as we know him, to the fetus. In the book, he is not specific about what the world condition is in terms of this film. But as he envisioned the world condition, what Arthur C. Clarke envisioned, I should say, was, and this makes the film dated also, he projected in the year 2001 there still would be a Soviet Union, and the two superpowers would be like this. And that each of these superpowers in the year 2001 would have nuclear weapons in constant orbit around the Earth, any one of which could rain terror at the push of a button. So that's what he envisioned. And that's why I say that when the bone goes up, it's one of those nuclear weapons that's going around the world. So, and I can't remember why I got onto this. Does that answer anything?
Yeah, it does.
Not really.
So
All right.
Star Child was another evolution of
Oh yeah, that's the next
Right.
level. Yeah.
Was he a god at the end? Like,
Well,
around the...
I don't
That's
think
what I
God
was just
anymore.
wondering.
I mean, then you could ask, are the aliens gods to us? Maybe they would. Are we like a god to an ant, if they could conceive of what we are? I mean, there's when there's millions, not billion, millions of years of advance of some species beyond another. I suppose they would think of us as gods. Whether we are gods is your metaphysical decision, in a way. That's it. No more questions.